And now,
from Greater Sandton and beyond, get ready for the Sandton Times Hour
with your host,
Alexander.
Ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between and beyond, welcome to the Sandton Times Hour. It's edition 198. It's week 23 of 2025, and I'm Alexander Leipner. And a very special welcome to everyone listening, if you're listening for the very first time, be it on air or online, as well as all our regular Sandton Times Hour Nation listeners in Johannesburg and Pretoria, across South Africa and everywhere else in the world. Wherever you are, I'm happy to report that all is well in Sandton land. And Vincenzo, our able Italian mixing desk jockey, is behind the desk again. And June is upon us, and so are the colder winter months. And if you've got some hot tips on keeping things cozy this winter, drop us a text or voice note on 084 Sandton. That's 084 726 3866. Do you have a well-guarded winter hack? Like that one thing that all of us could make a little winter ritual out of? Share it with us. 084 Sandton. Whilst you get busy typing and recording, this week was another wild one in the diary. Tudor launched their new range of timepieces, and details are up on the website, sandtontimes.co.za. Then the 2025 Product of the Year was announced at a very fun evening in Sandton, and congratulations to all those brands and products that walked away with an award and a new title of Product of the Year. And some other really interesting stories, which I will tell you about round about now. As we look at who we're talking to this week, in a bit, I'll be sharing an interview around a new winter menu and one of Sandton's star restaurants. So pull up a chair and tuck in. Then I slipped on my sneakers and headed to one of the largest malls in Greater Sandton that is seeing a revival. Stay listening for that, all the details coming up on that. And we also reconnect with our regular entertainment commentator to explore some new movies and attractions on our doorstep. And finally, theatre royalty returns to the stage this winter with his latest Broadway show. And I'll bring you all the details on that. This and more is coming up. I'd also like to hear from you. So if you would like to get in touch, send through your questions and comments or feedback, and you can do so by using the email address editor@sandtontimes.co.za. You can connect on social media @Sandton Times, and also hop onto the website sandtontimes.co.za. And if you're not part of our podcast community, be sure to subscribe to the Sandton Times Hour on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, AfroPods, Podcast Party, and so many more. Pick your favorite one and be sure to like and share.
Show some love.
subscribe, share,
Leave a review and rating for the Sandton Times Hour
on your favorite podcast app now.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
Nestled on the 7th floor of the Leonardo in the heart of Sandton is AURUM Restaurant, and that's where fine dining meets heartfelt nostalgia, all orchestrated by one of South Africa's most talented culinary minds. I had a chance to sit down with executive chef Biondi, the gastronomic lead behind the Golden Glow of AURUM, and with a resume that includes time at iconic establishments like DW1113 and Restaurant Mosaic. Michelle brings a seasoned perspective and refined creativity to the table, quite literally. I had a chance to sit down with her this week and kicked off our chat by asking her what one of the dishes are on the winter menu that holds a personal memory for her.
The spinach tart actually originates from my mom when she was baking it at home. And I usually start with one piece and then I work around it. So she used to bake a spinach tart with cheese. She would obviously put in a lot of African influence. I did change it a little bit to adjust to the palate of people that we're serving here at AURUM, but it most definitely comes from, meals at home and having a lot of family around the table, Christmas. So the spinach tart is most definitely, a South African tradition. Yeah.
Do you think it's important for chefs to bring in that little personal touch or that bit of story of their personal life into their menus?
I really think it's important. A lot of people will call us to the table and say the food is amazing, and we always answer them. It's the love that we put into the food.
You've had some, great experience at some really top Greater Johannesburg restaurants. How have those shaped your style, especially with the dishes that you're serving at AURUM?
I would say that I still focus on flavor but the finishes and the touches are what makes the difference. I try and make the food look really good on a plate.
That's really sort of elevating the meal itself, right? Because we eat with our eyes most of the times as well.
Definitely, yeah.
AURUM means gold. For those who've done a bit of sort of ancient languages and have kind of worked back to the roots. It redefines opulence. It has meaningful experiences. How do you translate this philosophy onto a plate?
So what I've done since I've gotten here is try and change the food style. So that I've actually done. So now we're going to try and create an experience, So make sure that when your oysters come out, you have dry ice in the oysters and there's a bit of atmosphere. So now we want to try and create a little bit of something extra, something of an experience, like an aroma inside the oysters. So you can see the dry ice and the smoke over the table and the smell. You want to literally reel in all of your senses. So I think we should start focusing on that now. This is what we're going to be doing this year.
So it's bringing in a bit of theatre, a bit of drama into the meal, yeah?
Top notch, yes.
You've mentioned enhancing natural flavors through ingredients. Can you share an example of an unexpected ingredient pairing that turned out to work beautifully?
On my last menu, I had a carrot risotto. So if you hear carrot risotto, you're like, carrot risotto, you're thinking chunks of risotto. So what I used to do is roast the carrots in the oven with honey, so you can extract that beautiful sugary flavor, and I combined it with fresh grapes, toasted almonds and pickled raisins. So that's one thing that really excited people. And also they also called me to the table and said, I really thought that this was going to be weird, but I enjoyed it so much.
And clearly also a very elevated vegetarian dish.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Mediterranean influences and modern European techniques. How do you balance that global inspiration with local sourcing in your menus? Because that's also become very popular globally in terms of finding produce that's within a certain kilometer radius of the restaurant.
I would say that we carefully curate our dishes, but also what's really important is cooking again and cooking several more times until you feel that this dish is perfect. So obviously you also need to be aware of what is in season and what is around you, but not just deciding this is what I'm going to slap on the menu. You need to be cooking once or twice or three times, and that's what we actually do here. We sit and think of a menu and we do tastings 2 or 3 or 4 times. So we go through a whole process. So we make sure that everything is readily available. You'll never come here and hear, oh sorry, it's out of season, oh sorry, we don't have this tonight.
And I mean, the Leonardo itself is a melting pot of both local diners, so people within and around Greater Sandton, but also a lot of internationals that are coming on holiday.
Yes.
How do you balance those two palettes, and are there expectations from a lot of the overseas visitors in terms of what South African dishes should or should not be?
I would say that I balance it perfectly. I have the foodie experimental dishes, and then I obviously have the South African dishes. I do keep the ostrich, I do keep kudu, and also some of the food is your savory sweet combination. So a lot of people who come and eat here tell me South Africans actually have a really sweet palate, and then I say yes, so if international customers come, we'll always make recommendations. So you have your extremely foodie dishes, and then your more homey dishes.
That was AURUM's executive chef Michelle Biondi chatting about her latest plated creations, and I do encourage you to pay the restaurant a visit this winter. Time for a quick break and more of the Sandton Times Hour right after this.
Follow the Sandton Times on social media.
At Sandton Times.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
Fourways Mall has gone through the most these past years, but this past week, a new team designated to recover the mall from its nosedive was able to showcase some of their progress, racking up over 20,000 square meters in new leases and welcoming more than 150 tenants back into a refreshed retail space. I had a chance to chat to John Holley, director at Flanagan and Gerard, part of the team behind the transformation, and I kicked off our chat by asking him about what it's taking to turn Fourways Mall around.
Sure, I mean it's a lot of passion, a lot of hard work, a lot of debate, and I think a lot of committed people. It has been hours and hours and hours of tireless work. Although we talk about Flanagan and Gerard and the Millmans, we've got an amazing team of professionals behind us, and it's everyone moving in the right direction. I think we said in the presentation we were appointed because we like to believe we are the most agile and the most entrepreneurial in the property game, the Millmans and Flanagan and Gerard. And I think the ability to make quick decisions, to debate a strategy, but then to quickly implement that strategy, really was essential. We were brought on board at a time where there were, give or take, 50,000 squares of renewals, and the vast majority of those tenants were looking at potentially leaving. And we had to come up with a vision which we believed in and which the market believed in, and then start to implement that. And thankfully it's working. It's fantastic.
Clearly the asset was big enough for this area to justify putting in that blood, sweat and tears to turn it around.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a question like, why are we getting involved? And we asked ourselves that a lot, and it was a big challenge. And we kind of all were excited, but actually nervous. But we thought, it's something which is an exciting opportunity, and something, how do we not get involved in? So we looked at the macroeconomics in and around here. We had numbers that were shown to us by the likes of the AURUM and Investec databases showing the wealth that's on our doorstep. And we looked at some of the bigger macro design aspects which they have got right. And we thought, well, if we can just get a small percentage of that spend on our doorstep to start believing in the asset again, we can turn this. But there were so many role players that we had to get to buy into it. And the first was to start chatting to all the other landlords in the area, to start improving the whole Fourways region, to start getting all of us landlords to start taking robots and making sure they are off-grid so that people can actually get around Fourways, that there's not a negative to staying in Fourways. And so we've started, we were one of the role players of the Business Improvement District. And thankfully it is working, far more robots working now. We've got Fidelity, who manages security here, to also be part of the Business Improvement District. And now we are monitoring the robots. And it's many elements like that. Johannesburg Parks have kindly donated 500 trees. We'll start to plant those trees in and around the region. And just try and improve the whole aesthetics of Fourways. And then start the journey of then, once you're in the area, guiding you into the mall, and then once you arrive at the mall, ensuring that it's a seamless and enjoyable experience, and getting people who've got choice to believe and want to be here, because the people who had choice left us in many instances. Now we want to get them back, and they are coming back, because we're seeing it in our tenants' turnovers. And the mall was up 28% this April versus last April, was a significant number, and that's testament to people are believing in Fourways again. And today, you see the plane behind us, it's symbolic for the relaunch of Fourways. And that's really what we wanted to get, what we wanted to achieve today.
This week's milestone is not the final destination. We can consider it a transit point. There are bigger plans ahead. What are some of the significant changes that people will notice when they come to Fourways Mall in the coming days? From where you've come from?
So I think we started with the basics. We had to get the basics in place. The lighting was terrible. And we need our shoppers to have a perception that they are in a world-class environment, that they feel comfortable, that they want to shop here, that they will choose to come back. So we started by improving the lighting across the mall. We spent 24 million rand just improving the lighting across the mall.
You've also already given us a bit of a projection of where you can see this project going forward. You mentioned that there's a high-end element to the mall that you're looking to bring into it now that you've kind of worked out the, I'd say, the sort of hygiene factors, the sort of expected elements.
Yes. So, what we've also tried to achieve, people often are daunted. It's a daunting experience. Sometimes people come such a big mall, so we try to establish nodes. And, I think in time we'll look to establish a more luxurious node. But we can already see it from the likes of Woolworths trading up significantly, Fabiani, etc., etc. That journey is happening already. People are coming back at MITS. We've spoken about how many more people who use at MITS are here every month, and it's again significant growth every single month. People are choosing to come back.
Personally, is there something that really excites you in terms of the mall? I mean, it's always great to sort of have this sort of favourites or sort of personal skin in the game when it comes to a project like this.
Yeah, I think it's just such a privilege to be a part of something like this. As I say, it was made us nervous initially, but to now show the tangible changes is really gratifying. And I mean, this plane again, this lady in a lady, is just so cool. Again, before it was covered in dust, it was dirty. It was just such a negative experience, and now I can't wait to see how the energy is going to flow here. We've got a super regional centre, up to 1.5 million people through here every month. Many of them have never seen a plane, never even been into a plane, and now they'll come here, and then from here you got the likes of Spur around the corner, you got the Bounce around the corner, and that's one of the things that we're starting to see is how the flow is improving. But I think there's just a lot to get excited about. There's not necessarily one element.
That was John Holley, director at Flanagan and Gerard, chatting about the latest improvements made to Fourways Mall. And if you have been to the mall lately, I'd love to hear about your experience. So don't forget, use the number 084 Sandton. That's 084 726 3866 and send through your text messages or voice notes.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
Taking you into the second half of the Sandton Times Hour, my name is Alexander Leipman, and if there's anything that sounded good during the show and you didn't get the details, didn't have a chance to write it down, or you just couldn't remember what or who we spoke to, well, don't stress. You can go onto the website, sandtontimes.co.za, and visit the show notes for a detailed breakdown of everything discussed on this week's edition. And also be sure to check out the Sandton Times social media accounts. Follow on whichever social media account you feel comfortable. And also save the WhatsApp number, the exclusive Sandton Times WhatsApp number, 084 Sandton. That's 084 726 3866. And feel free to use that to send through your voice notes, text messages, and whatever else you might want to send through. And that's the Sandton Times Hour exclusive WhatsApp number. Staying on all things Fourways Mall and entertainment, it's time to chat to our regular commentator on entertainment, Tat Wolfen. You've got some interesting things lined up for us, both thematic and slightly different. Before we get into the Fourways Mall chat, you've got a new movie called 1-to-1 with John and Yoko.
Yeah, well, it's being released by Ster-Kinekor exclusively in IMAX theatres. I'm not a huge John Lennon fan, but I know that there are lots of fans out there of both John Lennon and the Beatles. The movie is called 1-to-1, John and Yoko, but only on the 6th, 7th and 8th of June for single screenings. So if you want to get in there, I would suggest going online and booking. It's released by a company called Gravel Road, which does all these exciting sort of niche releases, and I think we should support them.
Yoko isn't singing in this movie, is she?
Please, no. I really hope not.
Right, let's have a quick listen to the trailer.
8071?
Is Howard there, please? Would you tell him John Lennon called?
L-E-N-N.
Yeah.
Oh, you remember the Beatles?
That's right, yeah. Good morning, folks. Have you had your breakfast yet?
This my generation is over, but we can start all over again, right?
I just got to see the village for the first time. I really feel at home there.
I was considered a bitch in this society. Since I met John, I was upgraded into a witch.
I fell in love with an independent, creative genius. I started waking up.
Why would you do a concert for free?
To change the apathy that all the youth have. speak to them, sing to them, and do anything to get them alive again. Vive la revolution.
You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us.
How would you like to be remembered?
Just as two lovers.
All right, let's move on to our walkabout that we did around Fourways Mall. You joined a very elaborate media contingent that was invited to have a look at what's happening at Fourways Mall. And there's so much to unpack, and we're going to be putting up more content on the social media channels and also on the website. But if we look at some of the entertainment attractions at this revitalized Fourways Mall, what were some of your impressions in terms of what they've got to offer now?
Alex, I've just got to preface this by saying that for years I've avoided Fourways Mall like a plague, especially since they enlarged it, because it just became this sprawling, confusing and alienating mess. And I didn't want to go anywhere near it. But these new guys now who are running the shop, so to speak, are doing what mall owners should be doing all over the place, and they're not doing it. They're looking at the mall from the perspective of the consumer, and they're asking people, talking to people, looking at comments on social media. So they become sensitive. Instead of just sitting in their insular bubble of a boardroom and going like, yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. They're sensitive to what people feel when they go to a mall.
I had this conversation on the sidelines of my interview with some of the senior members of the team, and I said to them, it feels like this is no longer being run by a spreadsheet operator, somebody who's watching the numbers, the accountants, but it's actually being managed by somebody who actually understands the psychology, the sociology, and everything else, the hospitality of a mall. And that's why they're starting to see the results they're getting, as opposed to someone who just says 2 and 2 is 4. And that's why we have to switch off all the lights and, close the parking area.
Yeah. So when I arrived for this walk around that we did, I entered through what they call the entertainment entrance now, where the movies are and all those eateries and things are, And immediately I was just struck by the fact that it's brighter lit and it looks fresh and clean cut and open. And I was just thinking, wow, this doesn't feel dingy and sort of half attended to anymore, So already just walking in, it felt more welcoming. And I see now they've also done this thing with the lifts, which for me was crucial, because before the buttons on the lifts didn't correspond with the floor levels. So let's say, for example, if a floor was upper shopping, you'd get into the lift and you'd have like -2, -3, +1, whatever. And you're thinking, well, which button corresponds to upper shopping? But now they've color-coded everything and the lift buttons correspond with the levels. So all these things are making you feel like you own the space. So you're not like a stranger in somebody else's country. This is now becoming your space, your mall.
Yeah.
So I found that very friendly, and so you're not muttering and grumbling. I remember we used to be in lifts in the Fourways Mall on the few occasions that I used to go, and people in the lift would be saying like, what's going on here? How do I get to this place? And what does this number correspond to? For me, it's like a whole new world, to quote from The Little Mermaid. We were talking about entertainment because that's why I'm here, obviously. Their whole entertainment offering has become so exciting, and they're picking up on the model of American malls, which want to be more than just a place where you go and shop, where it should be a place where you can go and you can take like the whole family on a Saturday and you can just do stuff. And there's stuff for all different ages. I mean, they've got Bounce, which is all those trampolines and things, sort of jumping surfaces, which is exactly what you need your kids to do so they can work out all their energy. And by the time you get home, they can just collapse in bed. So that's perfect, Yeah. They've got rock climbing facilities, action go-karting. There's that mini golf next to the entertainment area outside there. There's the paddle court. There's that great big new paddle court that they've put in there for the adults. And that's also been steered towards families. They're building like a little kind of a racetrack around the paddle courts where kids can go on their tricycles and bikes and stuff. And they've got a restaurant there where you can sit and watch the sunset on the West Rand. So they've turned that into a whole family experience as well. Of course, cinemas are always a family experience, or can be if you go to the right movie. Ster-Kinekor is actually going to be investing money in their Cineplex there to upgrade it. Because Ster-Kinekor there, I don't know if you remember, about a year or so ago, Ster-Kinekor was talking about closing down 6 of their Cineplexes, and they ended up not going that far. But one of the Cineplexes which was under threat of being closed was the one at Fourways, because like the rest of the mall, it was just kind of tired and neglected, and people weren't attending anymore. But with the fact that the whole mall has been rejuvenated, so Ster-Kinekor, along with a lot of the businesses there as well, are going like, okay, cool, this mall believes in us, and now we believe in ourselves as well. There's greater foot traffic, so we're going to put money into this, and refresh it. And for me as a cinema lover, that's just like A for a way. It's fantastic.
Well, I encourage everybody who's tempted by some of the things that we've mentioned, and we haven't even really chatted about the aircraft that they've resurrected in that mall, which is also turning into a bit of an attraction on its own.
The aircraft is an old 727 Boeing, and they're thinking of putting some kind of eatery or something inside there. And the guys who were taking us on the tour said, the kids are going to love eating in this airplane. And I said to them, never mind the kids, I'm dying to sit down and have an ice cream in this airplane. As we walked inside of it, and it just looks like fun.
If you've been tempted, well, go have a look at Fourways Mall. We're also going to put some more information up on the website. And Tat, it was good fun exploring this now more livelier, fresher mall in Northern Johannesburg with you. And let's catch up again next week.
As always, Alex, I look forward to it. Take it easy.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
I always enjoy chatting to my next guest, none other than South Africa's multi-award winning theatre star and the country's very own Phantom of the Opera, Jonathan Roxmouth. And after dazzling audiences around the world with sold-out performances, Jonathan is back at home for a limited season of his brand new show, My Favourite Broadway, at Montecasino's Teatro. The show is a spectacular celebration of his personal favorite Broadway hits, brought to life alongside the incredible 32-piece Igoli Symphonic Orchestra under Maestro Adam Howard. And Jonathan will be performing 8 unforgettable shows across 2 weekends in July and August, and fans can expect everything from the haunting passion of Phantom of the Opera to the revolutionary anthems of Les Miserables, all delivered with his signature powerful voice and theatrical flair, and may I also say charm. I'm thrilled to welcome him back to talk about his journey, his latest show, and what it means to be performing again in South Africa. So, Jonathan, it's fantastic to have you back on the Sandton Times Hour.
Thank you so much, Alexander. It's lovely to be back.
What does it feel like performing on home soil to your people, our very own South Africans?
You know what? There's more to that question. Having performed for everyone else, what's it like performing for my people? Deeply emotional. And something that I will never, ever take for granted. Because I think, there's that wonderful saying, you don't know what you've got till it's gone, or something along those lines. But essentially, I've performed overseas more over the past 5 years than I have at home. And no offense to any of the other countries, of course. But I was raised on the audience response that South Africans have, which is immediate, honest, and loud. And that's not to say that it's not polite. It's just, it's such an immediate understanding in a relationship that happens in real time that aside from singing with an orchestra and singing musicals again, to connect with that audience again is what I'm most looking forward to.
Well, you're bringing a great selection of your favorite Broadway hits to the stage. How did you choose the songs which include some big names, some big numbers, and also sort of bring in also an element of surprise to the audience?
So I was at the Teatro last week, and a couple sitting next to me, the lady said to me, tell me, it says that it's a bunch of songs through your lens, but will it still be the greatest hits? And I said to her, well, even if it wasn't the greatest hits, to hear a song that you don't know played by a 32-piece orchestra live on stage is amazing. But to answer the question, of course it's the greatest hits. I've chosen songs that mean a lot to me, that I either have a personal relationship, so obviously stuff like Phantom, but also songs that I'm still dying to sing, so obviously stuff from Les Mis. And then in between all of that, because we have an orchestra, I've deliberately chosen songs that require that entire orchestra to just sweep in. To go up and sing something from, a very light musical that's just based on pop songs, like, say, Jersey Boys. And it's not that Jersey Boys is a light musical, but it doesn't require an orchestra. It requires 4 amazing voices. But there are some of those classic musicals, like The King and I, like Cabaret, that require that full, like at least a full string section, which we have. So it's afforded me the opportunity to sing songs that in the past, the band that I've had haven't been able to provide that sound. Now that we have the numbers on stage, we can really dig into songs that people love. My Fair Lady as well. It just sold out at the Teatro. That features very, very nicely as well. So there's lots of surprises. I think there are only 2 songs that people won't know, but they'll be very glad that they heard them.
Yeah.
That's the best I can put.
And you know what? What a great moment of discovery when you do find something that you've never heard before, but you're totally swept away by it. And I love what you said about the orchestras as well. I mean, there's just certain things that a whole section of French horns and a full orchestra just does so much better than sort of a single violin. And there's just certain songs that are just so dramatic that you can't just pull them.
And also, I think because we're in 2025, the idea of 32 human beings on stage in front of you playing the instruments live, as opposed to a backtrack or a cell phone or an iPad, this is amazing stuff. It still holds a magic that can't be replaced.
Yeah. You're going to be recouping your role of Billy Flynn in Chicago later this year. Now, how do you switch gears from doing a show that is so dynamic? There's a lot of variety. You get to obviously do all the great songs and pieces that you enjoy, to a show that is very specific in the way that it gets executed, a musical that is very distinct in its sound and its and the way it gets presented?
The simple answer is I'm playing somebody else in Chicago, but I'm being myself in my concert. So there isn't much of a gear shift required in terms of acting or portraying, because when I do Billy, I sing in Billy's voice, I stand like Billy, I walk like Billy. But for my concert, even though there's lots of variety, I'm still me in every song. And I think that's one of the hardest roles to play, especially if your career is based on pretending to be other people. I always say there's this wonderful adage that my job basically entails behaving like a human being. So best I know how to do that, because if I'm going to be impersonating other human beings on stage, best I know how a human being behaves. From that point of view, yes, Chicago is a lovely jazz band and it's amazing and it's fun and it's sexy and it's a bit, I'm a slimy lawyer. Who doesn't want to be a slimy lawyer? Especially in Johannesburg when it's criminal law. But from my point of view, I think the joy is to be able to go from a concert that is not just a concert, it's a homecoming.
Yeah.
I'm back. I'm basically letting everybody know I'm back and I'm so sorry I've been away for so long. And to celebrate that, we're going to sing all the songs I've always missed singing in a way that I've not sung them before. Then I go into Chicago and I get to play a role that I played in 2018 in New Zealand and China, but not South Africa. So that, in a way, is a homecoming as well. I never got to do Billy Flynn in South Africa. You want to talk about a ridiculous embarrassment of riches at the moment. I think by the law of averages, I should be hit by a taxi tomorrow.
Well, hopefully not, because people have bought their tickets. But you are obviously well known for the role that you've played as Phantom of the Opera. How do you make a role like that your own? Because the show it's well known around the world. People are expecting a certain type of character, but there's certainly no way of not bringing in your own style into an iconic role like that.
Well, the team very much encourages you to bring your own Phantom because there is a very huge, heavy Michael Crawford-shaped shadow hanging over you when you put that mask on. Even the way some of the music is written, you can't help but go, night, and you're doing Michael Crawford, you're like, oh my gosh, because you've listened to that LP so many times. But as time went on, I found a lot of my own life started informing my choices when I played the Phantom. Being in love changed the way I played it. Having my heart broken changed the way I played it. Losing people in my life as they got older, that informed the way I did. So I think as long as you have a good connection between who you are and what you want to portray in that character, you can play it for years and years and years, and you never get bored of it because there's always another color to discover.
I like how you framed that as well, because I think once you've experienced those emotions firsthand, you're able to tap into those when you
Exactly.
play these parts, and that sort of down once more to the dungeon of my darkest, despairs or dreams or whatever. It just
You could
feels
do the role. You
differently.
basically know all the lyrics. So that's
Listen,
amazing.
I often find myself walking around the corridors going, "Dear Andre, what a splendid party." But anyway,
No, I tell you what, you'd be a fantastic filmer. Anyway,
we'll move it on. You mentioned your relationship with South African audiences.
Yes.
How do international audiences respond to your performance and your work? How is it different?
I want to reframe that question. How do international audiences respond to the show? Because who I am is irrelevant to them because they've never heard of me before.
Okay.
What is amazing with Phantom is Phantom gets pretty much the same response emotionally from an audience, regardless of the language. A lot of the shows that we performed the Phantom of the Opera in, we had subtitles on the sides of the stage on big screens. What that did mean is that audiences were doing sort of a Wimbledon thing, left to right, watching you, then watching what you're saying, then watching you again. But as time went by and we went to the territories that we played recently, particularly in China, because everyone knows the words already and they know what's being said, because Phantom is so part of the zeitgeist with musical theatre at least, they were with us. And when Christine gives back the ring, you hear people sob. When Raoul kisses Christine, you hear people, just simper in the audience. When I pop out on the angel at the end of Act 1, people get a shock. So it's the same emotional milestones in every city. And that's got to do with Andrew Lloyd Webber, Hal Prince, Gillian Lynn, Maria Bjornson, you name it. It's incredible. And let's not forget the lyricists, Charles Hart and Richard Stilgoe. There's a lot there that still holds up 39, 38 years later. Phantom has become the universal language in its own way. It's amazing.
It is remarkable. Jonathan, how do you feel about exploring new material, especially musicals that you haven't starred in yourself or haven't performed in? Does it kind of whet your appetite to kind of say, "Oh, it'd be great to, do that particular show sometime or get involved in that particular production"?
I'm always so scared of saying this because I never ever want to be misunderstood as being ungrateful or disregarding the incredible shows that I've had the privilege to be part of up until now. But Anthony Warlow, one of my favorite Phantoms, he's an Australian singer, said in an interview, "Man cannot live on Phantom alone." And when I first heard that interview, I thought, what a horrible thing to say about Phantom. How dare he, because we take it all personally. But I understand what he's saying, because I think I've achieved the role, I've done it, and I'm grateful that it entrenched me in certain people's minds as being reliable for a good song or two. That means that I want to expand on that and find perhaps another role that I can sink my teeth into where I won't be compared to a younger version of myself. Because I played the Phantom 13 years ago here. So people are expecting perhaps that version of Music of the Night. So if I do it in the concert, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, I'm also aware that I'm going to be compared to a previous version of myself, whereas the beauty with going into something fresh, a musical that I've not done before, for instance, there's none of that comparison. And that is such a wonderful challenge for an actor because it's a blank canvas. It's not that I can start again, but I can lead with a different color this time in my voice or my physicality or my style. Please bear in mind, I don't think I'm a singer. I'm not an acting singer. I'm a singing actor. I started out acting. I happened to carry a tune as time went by and I became known as a singer, but that's kind of where I'm at. And I would love an opportunity to play a role that audiences perhaps don't expect from me, but one that requires me to work very, very hard in an area that I haven't had to for a long time.
Well, there you have it, Jonathan Roxmouth. He's going to be in My Favourite Broadway at Monte Cassino's Teatro in July and in August. We're going to put all the details up on the Sandton Times website because there's a lot of details you have to check out, times, pricing, etc., etc. But Jonathan, it's been such a pleasure having you on the Sandton Times Hour, and thanks for making the time to chat.
Thank you, Alexander. I really appreciate it.
And that wraps up another Sandton Times Hour for another week. And feel free to send through your questions or comments on one of the many channels, editor@sandtontimes.co.za. If you want to use email, on social media, you can connect at Sandton Times. Website www.sandtontimes.co.za, and of course WhatsApp 084 Sandton. That's 084 726 3866 for all your voice notes and text messages. As always, make sure you subscribe to the podcast too and stay up to date every single week on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and other leading digital audio platforms, and join the growing community online. Thank you to all our guests who made the time to be on the show this week, as well as the team behind the scenes who pull it together and make us sound good. It's hugely appreciated. Of course, a very special thank you to you for listening. And God willing, we'll do it all again next week.
That's it for this week. Thanks for listening to the Sandton Times Hour. And if you enjoyed it, be sure to share it.